In World War II, Southampton became the principal Allied port on the south coast. In peacetime a thriving passenger port and a familiar gateway for visitors to the British Isles, it had suffered severely from enemy bombing. As a result, the port had remained idle for some time, and much of its cargo handling equipment had been removed to other ports. Yet despite the considerable damage, deep water with relatively little tidal range, numerous modern piers as well as 7 graving docks for ship repair, convinced the Americans that Southampton remained one of the best ports in England. The reclamation of Southampton Western Docks in 1930 was part of the massive New Docks project led by the owners at the time, the railway company, Southern Railway. The development transformed the city's waterfront, turning the tidal mudflats into vital quayside and industrial space. The scheme reclaimed 400 acres of mudflats between Town Quay and Millbrook, making it the largest reclamation project in the UK at the time. The ground was reclaimed using silt and mud dredged from the channel of the River Test alongside chalk transported by rail from 16 miles away. A massive, straight concrete quay wall measuring over 8,000 feet was constructed to accommodate the world's largest passenger liners and cargo ships. The King George V dry or graving dock was built at the Millbrook end, opened in 1933 and was the largest in the world, with the contractor's shanty buildings eventually used to create Mayflower Park. During the Phony War period of World War II from September 1939 to May 1940, Southampton Docks served as the primary embarkation port for the British Expeditionary Force, BEF, as they deployed to continental Europe. Designated as a vital military lifeline, the port was heavily utilized to ferry hundreds of thousands of troops and vast amounts of mechanized armor across the English Channel to France. Immediately after the declaration of war in September 1939, Southampton was turned into a massive military camp. The BEF routinely boarded troopships like the SS Duke of Argyll to cross under the cover of darkness to Cherbourg. Land reclamation, made before the war, allowed the Southampton docks to handle thousands of tons of ammunition, fuel, and vehicles intended to support the Allied armies. While troops and supplies continually streamed through Southampton during the first 8 months, the front line in France remained largely static, with soldiers dug into defensive positions, waiting for the enemy advance. Yet the relative calm of the Phony War came to a sudden halt, on the 10th of May 1940 when Germany launched its blitzkrieg into France and the Low Countries. Southampton's role adapted from a port of departure to a critical gateway for retreat and rescue, and following the defeat in the Battle of France, Southampton became a major point of re-entry for British and Allied troops evacuated during Operation Dynamo at Dunkirk. Even after Dunkirk, ships at Southampton continued to transport a second BEF in a desperate attempt to reinforce Western France before ultimately executing a final evacuation of those troops and equipment in mid-June 1940. Because of its vital logistical importance to the BEF and the presence of the Supermarine factory, Southampton became a prime target, culminating in the Southampton Blitz. On the 13th of August 1940, the first daylight raid targeted the town centre during a busy Saturday afternoon. On the 11th and the 15th of September, raids targeted the aircraft factories, hitting the Cunliffe Aircraft Factory, killing 52 workers and destroying over 1,000 surrounding homes. The November daylight attack targeted the Southampton Civic Centre with a £500 bomb, piercing the Southampton City Art Gallery, killing 35 people, including 15 school children attending an art class. The first massive night raid came on the 23rd of November 1940, and from the 30th of November to the 1st of December hundreds of bombs were dropped, including 712 high-explosive bombs and 30,000 incendiary devices. Entire landmark districts, including the High Street and above Bar Street, were reduced to rubble, causing chaos in the community, leading to the government sending Wing Commander Hodsall to investigate. Many British officials feared that Southampton was too vulnerable. However, on the 6th of February 1942, the first 2 ocean-going, Lend-Lease cargo ships arrived, carrying timber and foodstuffs, and by May 1942 the docks were working to near full capacity and the British fears were found to be without foundation. Early in 1944, the headquarters of the 14th Port was moved from London to Southampton. Fairly compact office space and a sufficient number of billets were obtained in and near the city by using various structures, including the Blymont Barracks, a wing of the Civic Centre, a school, and 2 hotels. In the ensuing months, cargo handling facilities were greatly improved and, except for minor squabbles, labour disputes practically ceased. But Southampton's principal wartime contribution was to be made as a port of embarkation rather than as a port of discharge. In the months preceding the cross-channel assault, the emphasis in transportation cooperations increasingly shifted from receiving personnel and cargo, to planning and preparing for the outbound movement to the continent. During May 1944, all cargo discharge operations ceased at Southampton and the port personnel concentrated their efforts on preparations for the Normandy invasion. From D-Day onward, the Southampton port of embarkation had a key role in the outbound movement of Allied troops, equipment, and supplies to the continent. A major port activity at this time was the loading of vehicles and drivers aboard specially converted Liberty ships for delivery across the Channel. Because of its proximity to the continent, its excellent facilities, and the experienced Army port organization, Southampton remained active to the end of the war. Because of the success of Operation Neptune, many assumed that the Americans controlled the port. Yet on D-Day 2/3 of the British Army embarked from Southampton, and at all times the port was managed by Southern Railway through the Port Operational Executive Committee and the Port Emergency Committee, with representatives from both armies and navies working in close cooperation.